Hello there, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan, and the 6th episode of The Acolyte is out. And I have like a pounding headache, so I'm going to try to keep this kind of quick. If episode 5 was the main event, Friday Night Lights, then episode 6 was kind of like a nice soak in the jacuzzi for the victors, and a very quiet and depressing ride home for the losers. There's no action in this episode. Instead, we're focused mainly on character development. If you've been into the characters so far, then you're going to like this episode. I think it adds a lot more to the mystery of what's going on. But yeah, this episode doesn't really move the plot forward that much, and this is what you're going to expect in a non-serialized content. This is not The Mandalorian, right? This is one long story, and this is really just the downtime after the big event. We kind of return back to the dynamics of the twin, May and Osha. I feel like Stenberg's performance here was much better than in previous episodes, but again, the opposites on screen still carry her. I feel like the direction here is pretty solid. We have a new director, Hanelle Culpepper, and she's doing this episode and the last episode. Master Soul and Master Chimera are the main attractions in this episode once again. Lee Jong-jae provides a stellar performance on screen, the best he's done so far, and Manny Jacinto has really toned it down from an acting point of view. This is also how the character is written, I think, purposely, and I think this is for the better, in my opinion. Yeah, overall, this is a really tight episode. The dialogue, the acting is all pretty consistent, but again, not much happens here. Okay, spoilers now for episode 6.
What master hides his face from his pupil?
The duality of this episode was pretty cool. That's probably the strength of this episode. Once again, the writers seek to subvert our expectations, and although the twists so far in this show have been quite predictable, the gradual decline of Master Soul, the identity of the dark side master, it's really the sheer amount of twists rather than the shock factor of the twists that keep us kind of engaged, or at least keep me engaged in what's going on. After episode 5, we expect May to murder Master Soul on the ship, and for Chimera to imprison and try to turn Osha into an acolyte. We kind of see this on screen, but it unfolds in a kind of unexpected way. The scenes start out with both Osha and May trying to kill the other's master, revealing something that Osha has been trying to suppress this entire time that May has embraced, and that's that they're both passionate and emotional individuals, and they're quite alike.
I share everything with you, and you hide things from me or run off alone.
I want to have my own things.
Why?
Because I want to do everything together all the time.
But why?
Because we're not the same.
Of course we are.
The interesting thing is this episode actually moderates both individuals' views and returns them closer to the middle, closer to one another. It's clear this entire show is all about bringing these two twins back together, and maybe something happens once they do, once they engage in the Force. I think the twin narrative has definitely been the weakest part of the show so far, and I think it actually has to do a lot with just how confusing the portrayal of May and Osha is by one actress. Now, this is not an easy thing to do. I don't think a lot of actors and actresses have it in them to be able to do this. But yeah, Amanda Stenberg's lack of experience, I think, hurts this narrative quite a lot. We'll talk about this more in a separate video. But at least in this episode, it seems like they try to bring the twin thing back into center focus, and I think it works to a certain degree. The two masters are the highlights of this episode, and seeing them in the aftermath of the battle reveal their true colors, who they are beneath the mask, is pretty well done. Master Soul is a Jedi who is supposed to keep his emotions in check, but after the events on Kofar, he is quickly unraveling and losing control. Chimera is a former Jedi, not Sith, I think, and he has freed himself from the Jedi ways, and after his victory on Kofar, we find him surprisingly at peace. This is the dynamic I really like. I mean, we talk a lot about how suppressing emotions is bad for you. If you don't have an outlet for your emotions, it usually comes out in unexpected and violent, uncontrollable ways. It's clear in this episode, as the scenes progress, that Master Soul can no longer hold back that flood of emotions. I found the whole resetting the Wi-Fi on the ship and waiting 30 seconds scene kind of funny. It's typical Star Wars techno-babble stuff. It's very campy. You're either going to like this or you're not going to like this. But yeah, while waiting, watching the pain, the fear, and, the amount of emotion in Lee Jong-jae's eyes is incredible. It really does make those previous scenes where Soul just bows down to Vanessa Rowe and follows her lead in suppressing news about these assassinations from the wider order make sense.
Despite your feelings for this girl, do I have your support in this endeavor?
Of course, Master Vanestra.
It's becoming more and more clear that whatever happened to Master Soul 16 years ago, it's still affecting him to this day. You know, we talk about how Master Soul tells Jackie that he's not emotionally attached to Osha, but it's clear that Master Soul was lying to Jackie, and he's basically lying to himself. He's a broken man, and he doesn't truly trust himself anymore, and so he defers to another individual like Vernestra. Soul is so emotional here that he embraces May / Osha. And I know, like, some content creators are going to be like, oh, this breaks the lore, this ruins Star Wars, Jedi aren't supposed to hug people. They should read the new Jedi Order series, honestly. But yeah, that was unexpected for me. You know, the pained look on his face, the emotions. The funny thing is, again, we subvert this idea of what the Jedi believe, because in this case, emotions aren't necessarily a bad thing, because he's about to spill the beans here. He's about to go back to the Jedi Council and tell them exactly what happened on Brendok 4, what happened to the witches, and it's going to clear his conscience. It's probably the right thing to do, although we don't know exactly what he did. This also leads directly into what Kymer says as the Master to May in, like, the first episode.
An Acolyte kills without a weapon. An Acolyte kills the dream.
Now, there's a side plot back on Coruscant where we see Vanessa Rowe, and she's talking to another senator about Senator Rancor, who's trying to launch an external review of the Jedi Order, which I think is great.
Rancor has never been a friend of the Jedi, but I worry his fear has convinced so many.
A review should not be cause for alarm. The Jedi are always transparent with the Senate.
Transparent, you say, huh? I also really like the show don't tell detail about Master Vanessa not liking hyperspace travel. It reminds us of just how little she gets out anymore.
I find it unsettling.
It's a characterization that labels her as basically a bureaucrat who's stuck on Coruscant and not going out in the field. She even has Mark, your typical assistant to the regional Jedi manager type. Now, with Master Soul turning into an emotional mess, Kymer, on the other hand, is becoming increasingly cool and calm. He turns his back to Osha, who, like her sister, is also inclined to murder, but Kymer disarms her by literally being naked and transparent with her. Kind of like how Master Soul disarms May by also kind of leading on that he's going to be transparent to her. It's clear that both May and Osha need to know the truth. They need to come together. And so the truth is really the thing they're after. Anyway, the rage and anger inside of Kymer has resided after the battle. You know, while murdering a bunch of Jedi, especially Jordan Jecki, was not cool, he has properly released his emotions, and he's clear-headed. Also, I want to say this location here kind of reminds me of a Dark Side Ock 2. Like, you notice how these little animals kind of are like a mix between the Porg and that thing Luke milked? I mean, this entire island even looks like Skellig, kind of. Although I'm guessing this is a bit more south, like off the coast of Portugal, the Azore Islands, Madeira maybe. I know they filmed The Acolyte in Portugal. I think it's really not a coincidence that they're trying to mirror the Luke and Rey scenes from the sequels. I know a lot of people, especially big fans of the Jedi Order, are going to hate this. Like, a lot of people talk about how they like the black and white aspects of the Jedi and the Sith, and how one's good and one's bad. I think this is a preference thing. I really do. I think George Lucas has hinted both ways. I think the prequels are clearly a criticism of the Jedi Order as an institution and not individual Jedi, right? George is a very anti-institutionalist to begin with. So anyway, but yeah, the title of this episode is Teach and Corrupt, and it becomes clear who is teaching and who is corrupted pretty quickly. I mean, Kymer even throws in a lightsaber stance tip.
Your stance is good. You should keep your other elbow up higher. Allows for a swifter block.
But more importantly, Kymer is broadening Osha's mind to what the dark side actually is. It's not exactly the boogeyman that Osha has been taught. You know, the freedom that Kymer possesses, the freedom that he's trying to basically protect from the Jedi, is an important theme here. And more importantly, we find out that Kymer was kind of forced down this path. And like Osha, he has a very dark past where he loses everything. So, you know, they relate to each other quite a lot here. Also, both of these former Jedi have both failed at what they're doing. And so while Master Soul looks like a sweaty, homeless Sith Lord almost, with pale and greasy skin, Kymer is clean. He's taken a nice bath in hot springs. He dons what Almost looks like a Jedi robe, and even pulls this one-liner on Osha,
Your anger betrays your thoughts.
like he's Obi-Wan.
Be mindful of your thoughts, Anakin. They betray you.
Chimera is in control of himself here, and more importantly, he's pretty truthful about his intentions. I think he realizes that he can't try to control Osha and like detain her on this island because she'll just react the opposite way and slip through his fingers. I mean, that's kind of what happens to May, right? Chimera didn't even reveal his face to May, and so he has the opportunity here to try again, and he's smart. He takes a completely different tactic. This is really completely opposite to Master Soul. After he's about to reveal his secrets to Osha, I think he realizes that Osha is May finally. The dark side has subsided a little bit, his senses have returned. And when the lights come back on the ship, it seems like Soul just returns back to his Jedi self, which is why he stuns May in the back and detains her. Meanwhile, Chimera is like, oh, Osha, go swim to the ship and leave this planet. I don't care if you're here. Again, we're subverting the narrative of what a Dark Jedi and what a Jedi is. Everything is like flipped around. I like this aspect of it. You guys know my feelings about the Jedi and institutions. Vanessa Rowe arrives on Kofar, and I gotta say, it was really brutal to see Jackie and Yor just lying there broken like that. I think a lot of us have not recovered from what happened in episode 5, but yeah, this show is surprisingly brutal. There are elements in this show that are definitely dumbed down and feel like they are made for kids, but overall, this show is a lot more adult than I would say, definitely Boba Fett, definitely more than Kenobi. It's kind of a serious show. I'm kind of pissed off that they tease Vanessa Rowe's lightsaber whip, and all we see her do with it is destroy a moth. That's a cleverly marketed trailer scene, but I hate when they do this kind of stuff. It's also revealed that cortosis serves as a buffer, basically, for the Force, which is a new element here. And apparently, this is why Chimera was so powerful on Kofar. He was basically able to use the cortosis helmet as like a deprivation tank and really focus internally on his emotions. Look, I'm sure some people are going to be angry because the lore has changed a little bit, but again, I think this is an acceptable addition to the lore. I mean, what does that even mean? It's so cringy when people talk about the lore like this. I don't know. I'm kind of agnostic about this kind of stuff. But anyway, the ending here really sets us up for episode 7. Master Soul is going to finally reveal to us the Jedi's point of view on Kofar. I believe this because Kogonada, the individual who directed episode 3, will be returning for episode 7. And then, of course, episode 8 will probably revert back to present time, and the drama will finally finish, and we'll see how this all turns out. Again, guys, I know not a lot happened in this episode, and if you just like with episode 4, you really can't take any of these episodes individually. I hesitate to even call this a review because, again, you gotta review a show like this at the end. It's not like The Mandalorian, where every episode is neatly contained, or there's like 2 or 3 episode arcs, like in the Andor series. You have to take a look at the show in its entirety. And, the closer we get to the end, the more I am certain that this show is definitely not a 14 or 15 or 16. This show is definitely above mediocre. I can pretty clearly say that at this point. Whether they stick the landing, I'm also pretty confident that they should at least be able to land a lot of the plot elements. But anyway, guys, let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. And as usual, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. And as usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. I'll see you next time.